practice Norse paganism. In this particular type of paganism, there's a magic called Galdr. Roughly translated into English, Galdr just means an incantation or a song that is spoken or sung for a magical purpose. It can be for protection, or for healing, or for courage in battle, or for any other type of magic that you can think of. There are Galdr poems for pretty much everything. My ancestors were Norse and Sami. This means that they were using Galdr thousands of years ago. So it's in my blood. The way Galdr works is that you simply chant a rune, and there's a certain type of format for it. Galdr is just the Norse pagan expression of this type of magic. It has occurred throughout time and throughout different cultures all over the world, like Native American, shamanistic cultures, Asian types of religion, Buddhist prayers, that sort of thing. You can find some variation on enchantment or chanting for the purpose of achieving magic throughout all cultures at all times. But we're going to focus on the Norse expression because that's my cultural heritage and what I'm familiar with. Basically, Galdr is just chanting poetry for healing, protection, and magic. It's also important to note that you don't have to necessarily chant words. Part of my heritage is from the Sami, which is parts of 4 different Norse countries: Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Russia. These people were the indigenous people of that area, and they do a type of singing called yoiking. Yoiking doesn't have actual words, it's just sounds, although you can use words to yoiking as well. But the idea here is that sound itself has healing power. As you listen to this example of yoiking, notice how much it sounds like Native American chanting or Native American incantation. You can see the similarities when you go back far enough. From all over the world, we all seem to have this type of sacred musical incantation. Notice that if you didn't know that was a Sami chant, you might think it was a Native American chant or some other indigenous tribal chant. While it lets us know that there's a commonality among all of us when it comes to this type of sacred magic, it sometimes leads to false charges of cultural appropriation. I remember at one particular pagan festival I was at, we were gathered outside of a dwelling that the Sami live in. It's called the Lavu, and it looks very much like a Native American teepee when you first glance at it, but it's actually a little bit different. But it's common enough to where it looks like a teepee, and some of the well-meaning, I'm sure, people there accused us of cultural appropriation because we were sitting in a Lavu and we were doing yoiking around the campfire. And unfortunately, they didn't know that this was part of my heritage, so it was not cultural appropriation. It was just their lack of knowledge, in other words, their ignorance of what my particular culture was and how similar it was to Native American culture. So, point being here that we all have a type of Galdr, we just call it something different from culture to culture. Now, in Norse paganism, or Norse magical practice, Galdr has a certain structure. Let's go over what that looks like. There's usually 8 lines in a Galdr poem. And the first line always alliterates with the second line. The second line always alliterates with the first line. The third line always alliterates with itself. Then the fourth line always alliterates with 5. The fifth line always alliterates with 4. And then lines 6 through 8 alliterate with themselves. So let's look at examples of what that looks like. This is from the Skrinismal. Heri Jotnar, Heri Hrumbusar, Sinir Satenga, Sjálfer Ösledar, Veik Firbed, Veik Firbanna, Managlamani, Mananyetmani. And just for those who are curious, the English translation of that is, "Give heed, frost rulers, hear it, giants, sons of Satung, and gods ye too, how I forbid and how I ban the meeting of men with the maid, the joy of men with the maid. Now imagine that poem being set to music, being chanted around a fire with drums accompanying or maybe some musical instruments. You can imagine what that would be like and how it could put you in a certain altered trance state. We have a joke in my group that no matter what time every drum circle is supposed to end, it always ends at 4 a.m. And the reason for that is once you get around the drums and you start sitting around the fire and you play this rhythmic music over and over again, and then eventually somebody starts chanting, and then some other people join in, and then it just becomes this experience that transports you to another world. That's where the magic actually happens. And what I find interesting about yoiking in particular in Galdr is that it doesn't have to have words. So you could imagine a bunch of people from all around the world with all different indigenous spiritual traditions getting together around the fire. And I've actually seen this happen. I don't have to imagine it. Native Americans and Australian Aborigines and people of the Sami tribes and Norse followers all getting together and singing and playing music together. And the fact that the Galdr, or whatever you want to call your sacred songs, doesn't have any words means that you don't have to speak any particular language to sing along with it. You go back to the yoiking sample that we had earlier. There weren't many words in that. It was just singing syllables melodically. And the meaning is still there regardless of the language. You feel something by the way the music is pronounced and invoked and composed. It generates a language of its own. Music is the language of emotion, so you don't have to speak the words of the language to be able to understand the emotion behind the song. And to me, that's the most powerful form of magic in Galdr, is that speaking directly to the emotions without having to understand the words necessarily. And to me, that's where the real magic from the music comes from. Thanks for listening. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to click on that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified when I publish a new video.